So good afternoon from wherever you are, good morning, and welcome to yet another session of our decolonization series of webinars. A part of a series of webinars we are holding today, we will be discussing on the topic support platform for South-South collaboration, knowledge sharing, and exchange. My name is Samuel Toure. I am the Africa Regional Coordinator for Global Network of Volunteer Leadership Network established by IAVE. In this webinar, you'll be hearing from experts who are well-grounded in volunteering that will take you through the topics with our moderator. I am here to give you a brief about, for those of you joining for the first time, about IAVE and its work as well around the world, just a brief of it. So if I can be permitted to share my slides, I'll just take you for just 4 slides of it. Gal, can you please permit me to share slides, please? Okay, good. And I just hope that all of you can see my screen here. Lost it again, right? Can you see my screen?
Nope.
Okay, let's come in there. Give me a second. Just, okay. Just a sec. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So again, welcome. My name is Samuel Toure. I am the regional coordinator for IAVE Global Network of Volunteer Leadership. So IAVE have got more than 50 years of experience in volunteering, and it's formed to create a more just and sustainable world for organizations and communities across the world. Its core mission is centered to ensure that volunteers are safe and supported in their work they're doing across the world. And it also has its roots that when people come together to support communities, the change that it creates, it's lasting and puts the work or the change that is needed by the people, put them in the steps of their own development in there. And I have actually worked on 3 key areas, which is looking at advocacy, knowledge and creation and sharing, and leadership development. As you can see, what is written down on the advocacy, IAVE has done a lot of work on advocacy, spanning around different kind of webinars that we do on the leaning on our global network of volunteer leadership, which I will speak about in the next slides in there. And then in terms of knowledge sharing, IAVE have done global practice and efficacy and representation and influence by generating evidence-based and effective volunteer and individual organization, at societal level. And then we look at as well leadership, which you will receive much of the slides that we got. To achieve all of the 3 focus that I have here got, I have a thought fit that one way it can move faster to achieve this is by establishing the global network of volunteer leadership. This belief that I have focusing on this leadership, bringing people from across, volunteer leaders from across the world, cut across Europe, Asia, Africa, America, and Latin America, and the Caribbean. This is to ensure that this network is built to focus on 1, advocacy, organizational development, and leadership. By doing this, IAVE is building the capacity of the leaders of volunteers across the world to enabling them to adequately advance volunteering for development in their community. And this network, like I said, is stated everywhere. And for Africa, we have more than 25 countries that are part of the GNVL, and it's going. And also it's in Europe, they're doing extremely well in advancing volunteering in their various regions, including Europe, Asia, and North America, and Latin America, and the Caribbean. So for those of you who are in this call for the first time hearing about IAVE, I encourage you, if you are in Europe, you can contact our colleagues in Europe through the email at europe@iave.org. In Africa, you can reach me Africa@iave.org, and Latin America, if you're there, you can also reach us at latam@iave.org. And you can access more information on the IAVE website that will give you insights about IAVE and become a member of IAVE. By so doing, you can be able to contribute to the global impact that we are doing and also be a change maker, not just where you are, but the world at large. So we look forward to receive your email or membership and be part of this community of change makers. Thank you very much. And it's my time now to hand over to you this duty of the moderator, the chairperson of the person who will be leading us throughout the webinar, who has always been with us in issues that has to do with webinars or critical discussion or expertise that he has been sharing with us. In that light, I want to introduce to you Mary Lambo, who will be the coordinator for the moderator of the webinar. I also encourage you, while you're listening, please don't hesitate to contribute to the comment section there. You can save your comment and share more about it, about what you think about the presenting, and we can take those comments or questions and answer them at the end of the webinar. Thank you. I wish you a pleasant webinar. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you so much for the background and a little bit of history about who IAVE is. Good afternoon, good morning, good day to everybody. Greetings to everybody and welcome to this webinar. I hope that it will be very insightful for all of us and we will all be taking part and sharing because, you know, we're looking to grow the collaborations of South-South and we cannot do it on our own. We need everybody's input. The fact that we've got only 3-4 people on the panel, it does not mean that we don't have experts out there. So please share your expertise with us. Now, just to remind you that our topic is we want to create platforms for South-South collaboration, knowledge sharing, and exchange. We're now going to give our experts that are on the panel an opportunity to present. All the presenters will do their presentation. Please take notes, send your comments and questions in the chat box. We will be looking at that, and right at the end of the presentations, then we will go back into answering. So we'll have the panel answering your comments or your questions. Thank you very much. And to kickstart our webinar, we will start with Dr. Robert Tui, who is an international consultant and a senior expert in volunteerism from Burkina Faso. Now, Dr. Tui is not new to this platform. I have been on a panel with him before, and I can tell you he's got a wealth of knowledge that we can all really, really learn from. Dr. Robert, over to you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are now. I will try to be brief so that we can get more time to exchange, because for me, this is a moment of learning as well from us. It's giving and taking from you. So it's not that, as Mary already said, that we don't have experts among the participants. So we are respecting that we can get more insight as well from your side. Next slide, please. So the structure of my presentation, some general information, and then try to see what is needed to have a useful platform and what we need to pay attention to, and then a short conclusion. So next slide, please. So if we try to define South-South cooperation, it's a tool for countries, international organizations, academia, and society and the private sector to collaborate and share knowledge, skill, and successful sorry. Yes, and successful experiences in the area of voluntaries in the case of today's topic, because of course, initially it was more in the economic field, development field, but it can embrace any area when we come to South-South cooperation. And it is also based on the central idea, one moment. It is based on the central idea of solidarity, which is the same for volunteers, because solidarity is one of the key characteristics of volunteerism. From this idea, there's a number of essential principles of South-South cooperation. It's respect for national sovereignty, national ownership and independence, equality, non-conditionality, non-interference, and mutual benefit. I think this is important if we want to have a platform where to take into account those principles. One thing also that was even mentioned in the paper that was shared to advertise for this webinar, Africa is very often perceived as the receiving end, while the global north is perceived as the sending end of volunteers. So putting in place a platform, South-South, we have to take that into account as well, because even if it's South-South, we will always have also people from the north in our countries, and we cannot ignore them. There exists a platform created by the United Nations on South-South cooperation. I give here the link for people who want to go more into detail. You can find a lot of information on South-South exchange of experiences, learning on this platform, because it embraces different areas. The other point is that sometimes we have this perception that volunteers from the global north are better volunteers than volunteers from Africa, which means if we come to a platform, all this, we need to keep that in mind. National volunteer involvement organization, Africa also, at least most of them, rely heavily on funding from the global north for their operations. So when we come to funding a platform, we have to keep that in mind. And another thing that I've seen from the perspective of Africa, I read a lot of national laws and policies on volunteerism in Africa, and most of the time there's little emphasis on traditional form of volunteers, while we need also to consider that if we want to share also our story on volunteerism. Next slide, please. So what is needed if we want to have a meaningful knowledge sharing and exchange? One thing is that we need to translate our good practices into international standard. If we want people to come to a platform and read from what we're doing, it has to meet certain standards. My personal experience is that I've seen few sub-regional platforms. We have a tendency just to report on events. We have done this with a lot of photos and video, but you cannot see what has been the process to get to that, what has been the learning. You don't see that. So it's important that we think to bring our practices into international standard. Another thing is to strengthen our national volunteer involvement organization. When I talk about national volunteer involvement organization, it includes government established national volunteer program, civil society volunteer program, and so forth, so that we can enhance mutual learning and communication among providers. One example, in West Africa, you have the ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, it's a regional volunteer program. And each year they organize a forum for all the national agencies and include one or two civil society organizations working on volunteers in the country. And during one of these meetings, it was decided after the COVID situation that it would be good to draft a good practice guide to fight epidemics through volunteers. And we were able to do that. People brought in their own experience, and this document is about to come out officially. So I guess if we have a platform that is put in place, this could be one thing, for instance, that West Africa can share with other countries in Africa and elsewhere in the global South. And also we need to engage the volunteer involvement organization in a mutually beneficial relationship using a demand-driven development process of a platform. Because if people are not interested in something and we just put that, it will not be very useful. So usually you will even start by a need assessment so that you know really what people would like to see on the platform. Then, of course, in terms of technology, I'm not a specialist in this area, but we need a user-friendly technology. The platform needs to be well-functioning and ease of administration. This is important because I've seen also platforms in Africa, they start, and after a while, the platform is down, and you go, the link is broken. Even if you solve the problem later, people might not come back to the platform. So those are a few things I think we need to have in mind if we want to have a well-functioning platform for South-South cooperation. Next slide, please. Now, I put down some few things also that we need to pay attention to. On some general consideration, I think we should not multiplicate effort, but pool our resources to get a well-functioning platform. As I said, there exists already a few platforms in Africa. Of course, we are not talking here about only Africa, we're talking about South-South cooperation. But maybe we can build on some of these existing platforms to link up with the other global countries in the other global South. And also the platform should address the need of the volunteer involvement organization. That's what I've said in the previous slide. It's important that people find what they're looking for when they go to a platform. So the platform should facilitate the matching of supply and demand. I was talking about funding, that many or most of our organization will rely on funding from the global north. But I think we should rely mainly on self-funding. Our regional institutions like the African Union, the SADC, the ECOWAS, the ECAS, the Central African Community, the northern part of Africa, if we can go to this organization, I think they can help in setting up a well-functioning platform that will bring also what Africa will want to share with the rest of the global South. There is also, I mentioned before that the United Nations has a South-South cooperation group, the office, and this office has a fund. I also gave the link to this fund. Those could be things that could be explored. They could be interested in contributing to setting up a well-functioning platform for South-South cooperation. And of course, we need to have some performance indicator so that the platform, we can report on the performance of the platform. Next slide, please. Now, on the technical side, of course, needless to say that it is important to have a multi-language platform so that we can have a buy-in by all countries. In terms of staffing also of a platform, we need to have an appropriate mix of staff. For instance, there is a need to have a community manager who will be responsible for the operational management and the administration of a platform, animation and promotion of the platform on social network, creation of quality content, creation of enough traffic, and the administration of the platform. We need a communication and public relations specialist who represent the structure and take the necessary action to make the platform known. And since we are in the area of volunteerism, we need a specialist who will play a kind of quality assurance of the content. Because if we start to put things that are not of good quality, it can discourage people to refer to the platform. And another very, very important thing that, because I've seen on many platforms, they are not kept up to date. So the platform need to be kept up to date. Of course, security of the platform and its maintenance so that we don't, after a few months or 1 or 2 years, the platform is totally down and all link broken. Next slide, please. I think we're going to the conclusion. I have this story it's a story that I like very much, and I use it very often when we want to start any new initiative. So the story goes like it's from Japan, actually. Before I thought it was from Africa, but recently I found the origin is from Japan. There was a wise old man who had the answer to all questions. So one day, a child said that he had a question that the old master could not answer. Of course, the elder will not listen to him, but he insisted so much that they gave in and asked the child now to tell them what will be the question. So he says simple, I will take a bird in my hands, well closed, and ask the master if the bird is alive or dead. He can have the answer because if he says the bird is dead, I open my hand and the bird flies away. If he says the bird is alive, I shake my hand to kill the bird, and when I open them, the bird is dead. So all the villagers, of course, were very happy. They said, yes, for sure, this wise man cannot answer to this question. So they went to the wise old man, and he asked his question, Master, is the bird in my hands alive or dead? The wise old man, contrary to his habit, did not answer immediately. He found his long goatee, thought, and do you know what he answered? He said, the answer is in your hands. So the old master again had the answer to his question. I'm bringing the story just to say, as I said from the beginning, we all have a part of the answer in our hand. It is up to us to find it, and it's what we do with it that will make success. So all ideas during this webinar are welcome to help have a meaningful and useful platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robert. Okay, so talk about wealth of knowledge. The story from Japan, I've heard it before, and every time I hear it, it just makes me think differently about how things are being handled. So thank you for that. I think one of the important things that come out of this presentation is about the report, the performance, measuring performance, the indicators, also the return on investment for whoever funds the collaboration, because it does not matter if we have got South funder or Northern Hemisphere funder, as long as there is no return on investment, nobody will actually want to give money for that. All right, so we're moving on to Gabriel. Gabriel is from Brazil. And I think if Brazil can have about 4,000 NGO or even more collaborating in Brazil alone, collaborating with big corporates, they must be doing something right there. And I'm sure we can take some lessons from it. Gabriel, please share with us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm happy to be here with all these people, these good people. I'm going to also share my screen. I prefer to share my slides so that I can pass them on. So,
Gabriel, you should be able to do that.
okay. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, good morning or good afternoon or good night. I don't know where you are. It's really something to be speaking with people from all over the world. It's a pleasure to be with everybody over here. Where I'm from Rio de Janeiro, and over here it's still morning. So it's good to wake up with everybody that's over here today. I'm going to speak a little bit about our experience on collaborating with other NGOs and social projects from all over the world, mainly in the South collaboration theme. But first of all, I'm going to explain where I'm coming from and who we are. So I'm from Atados, and our motto is Juntando Gente Boa. And that means, our name actually means attached. It means that we are all together, we are all connected. And our purpose is to connect good people. This way we can be stronger, build a stronger society. And that's what we do. We started as a social engagement platform, and we still are. If you are curious to know a little bit more, you can go to our website, atados.com.br, and take a look at how it works. Today, we are the biggest platform in Brazil. We have around 225,000 volunteers that use our platform over here, and about 4,000 NGOs that are our partners and open volunteering opportunities in our website. And we also work with corporates. We have around 100 big corporate clients, and we work as a consulting company for all these big businesses in volunteerism and corporate social responsibility. These are some of the companies that we work with over here in Brazil and abroad. So I'll try to please. I'm not really good with design. I hope that you like the presentation. It's not big on design, but I hope you like the content that I've brought over here. We are a 10-year institution over here in Brazil, and we've done a lot of work, but mainly it's not only about a platform. It's about building relationships. It's about getting together with people. That's what we believe. That's what we do. Again, connecting good people with all the projects that we do, with the websites, with the corporate projects. We put people together to talk with each other, to get to know one another, to be amazed by the potential that we have. Sometimes volunteers think that they're going to an action, a volunteering day, and they think that they are going to save someone or bring a lot of knowledge, and they end up being amazed with the people that they find out, the stories that they hear. So that's what it's all about. And we really admire these people. All these NGOs that we get in touch, all these partners that we meet abroad from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America, these people that work in the social sector, they are special. We are special. We dedicate our lives to building a strong society, and we need to potentialize that to strengthen those bonds, so that we ourselves in the South can be stronger, you know. And as I said, we are a platform, but we are a platform to give all these NGOs over here in Brazil and in all the projects that we do, to give ourselves protagonism. The work that we do is important, and we need to collaborate with each other. There's no need to depend always and in every way on the global north. So this is a little joke over here. I can't hear you, but just think about it. Who knows this guy? There's a lot of people that knows this guy that comes from Brazil. This is Pelé. He's known as the king of soccer, the best player in the world. And how about this guy, Neymar? Oh, I don't like this guy very much, but he can actually play a lot of soccer. A lot of people know him. I think that most of you will know him also, but who knows this guy? This is one of the most important people for the history of the social sector in Brazil. And there's a lot of people over here in our country that don't know him. This is Betinho. He worked building a huge network of volunteers throughout the country, a lot of advocacy too. He did enormous social campaigns that brought food and social initiatives to a lot of people that live in vulnerability here in Brazil. And you probably never heard of him. Otherwise, you come from Brazil, we work in the social sector, then okay, you must have heard of him. But otherwise, not so much. So that makes us think, right? Who are our heroes? Who do we admire? Is it only soccer players, or where are all of these people that maybe we should admire more and should look more for these kind of stories? And I'm pretty sure that these are the people that I'm talking to right now, you know, people like Betinho that are doing marvelous work in their community. And that's why we need to get to know each other, you know, to exchange experiences. And most of these people like Betinho and our projects, it's the people that we don't talk about. Neymar's got millions and millions of people following his Instagram, but I mean, how about the work that we do? You know, we're not clickbait such as violence. We see violence every day in the news and people just click on it, or corruption or gossip. But we do incredible work, and we need to be together to strengthen these bonds and the work that we do, you know. So speaking about the platforms a little bit, we need to take advantage of all the platforms that we can to be together. And these are the international networks that we are part of. And it's been really important for the development of Atados to be together with all these people, all the projects that we got in touch with, all the projects that we actually received to do here in Brazil because we had these partners abroad. So it's really about taking advantage of these problems, whatever means that they offer. And one thing that it's been very important for us also is we have the digital platforms, WhatsApp groups or Zoom meetings with people from all over the world. But the moment that we can actually be physically together, it can be very potent. And to enjoy and appreciate the moments of conferences, for instance, it's really good. And conferences can be about this, what we're doing right now, right? We have some some experts over here talking about these themes, but conferences can also be about this, about getting to know one another, exchanging ideas, exchanging experiences. So everybody that's here, we should get together more. We should meet more in Zoom meetings or whatever the means that we can find. It's always good to meet one another in person, but it's not always possible. So what are the means that we can find, right? See, like in a conference, we're able to hug one another and everything, but just being able to exchange some ideas and to be together, it's very potent. And conferences can be about sharing knowledge, but they can be also about really getting to know people and to making new friends. So these are all the people that I've been getting to know from all around the world, from Hong Kong, from Africa, from the Dominican Republic, from Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso, Israel, and Taiwan, so all the places from Latin America. And if you just look at this picture in more detail, you can find that we meet again in every opportunity that we have. So see, that's Mary over there, and now she's mediating this panel, and we actually got to know each other at the last Yave conference that we had in Abu Dhabi. So a friend once said to me, don't do networking, make new friends. It's not about building a relationship on what you would like it to be as thinking about work or how you can use that relationship in some way. No, it's about making new friends because we all work in the same sector. We have similar values with each other. So how can we bond more to build stronger relationships? And we have a lot to share with each other. So just to be brief, I can give some examples over here. So I got to know Ana Paula, she's from Peru, and she created a website for volunteering in Peru. So she has a lot of experience with technology, with volunteerism, that's very similar to ours. So we got in touch and we started exchanging experiences with each other. And also with Pilar, she's from Mexico, and we had a lot of sales expertise with projects, corporate projects, and that she needed. So we started also exchanging ideas on how could we help them build a better sales strategy. Or George, he was also starting corporate projects in Burkina Faso, and he wanted to build an institutional presentation for him to build stronger partnerships, and that's really something that we could help with. And we started getting together, and he sent some presentations to us, and we sent him our presentations, and we started to actually build a bond. We sometimes just chat in WhatsApp, you know. So that's really what what's about. It's about strengthening these bonds. So another example, we got together with Ponte Enaugo. It's a similar organization as Atados, but in Panama. And they have like a very small team of about 3 to 4 people that we got together and we understood that our tool, the websites, the same platform that we have over here in Brazil, it could really help them in Panama. So we built them a platform. We did it as a service for them, and it just scaled a lot their operation. They've grown around 1,000% the possibilities that they can offer to volunteers. And we actually hosted the Points of Light Social Engagement Summit this year in São Paulo. And I mediated a panel about collaborations in South America. And I can also bring a little bit of what I've learned. And we heard about different cases, projects, and initiatives. So Monica, that's the director of Hands-On Network, of Hands-On in Colombia, in Bogota, and she brought a little bit about her experience. And this is Alessandra from the Telefonica Foundation here in Brazil. She's the director for volunteerism. And this is Jaime Ulloa. He speaks for Peru, and he has a lot of experience in corporate volunteering. And they all shared a little bit of their experiences and cases and projects. But one thing that and also this is Carlos Dini, which I actually got in touch because of Yave. He wasn't in the panel, but he shared a lot of his experience with me, and I brought this to the panel too. But in all those projects, it was really hard to find different institutions from different countries working together. There were a lot of, for instance, with Jaime, we had institutions from different sectors, from the social sector, from the public sector, from the corporate, working together, but all in Peru. Or when we were speaking with Monica from Hands-On Bogota, she had a project that she worked with another Hands-On, but in Mexico. And they were the same institution, but in different countries. And it kind of rang a bell to me, like it can be really hard to build a very strong project with different institutions in different countries. We have different purposes, we have different timetables, and we are doing a lot of work here, and the other institutions doing a lot of work there, and sometimes it's difficult to unite things. So I just gathered some tips and some insights that we reached to how can we surpass these challenges to build strong projects together. I hope that this helps you guys and in some way can help you strengthen new bonds with people from other institutions in the world. So sometimes working with a small group of decision makers to structure a business model first and then call other institutions to be a part of it can be better. And to have the same strategic objectives and KPIs like the SDGs can also help you get together with another institution. So the SDGs are a big KPI that unites a lot of different places in the world, and how can we use that to have the same focus? Emergency situations can also be used to unite. So in the pandemic, a lot of new connections were made because we had to work together to surpass this big humanitarian challenge. Marketing and recognition can have a big role on bringing competing companies together. So sometimes if you show that a project is going on and the project attracts media that can actually put people that would be competing with each other to be together and to solve a problem. And as I said, building bonds in events can be very powerful, but I really believe in starting small to then grow. So as I said, we started very small, talking with George from Burkina Faso, and then he was sending me his presentations, I was sending him mine, and we were just building something together. Not necessarily the institution you're talking to is the one that you need, but sometimes the institution that you're talking to in another country can direct you in the right way to talk with the person that you actually need. And again, make friends, not networking. It's really about getting to know one another, hearing what we have to say, being together, strengthen one another. So I really believe in that. And that's what I really want to call attention for in this panel. When we're speaking about South-South collaboration, we have similar realities in a lot of ways. We live in countries that social vulnerability can be very big and present. And we have different cultures, we have different life experiences, but some things are very similar. How can we connect to each other on this and be stronger together? So yeah, that's, I don't know about the time that I took, but that's a little bit of what I brought for today. So thanks everybody for hearing.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabriel. Wow. So don't just network, make friends. And don't just make friends, learn from each other. Let's get knowledge and expertise from friends. We don't necessarily need to have a funder that will fund you to go spend a year or 3 months abroad for you to go get some knowledge or some skill. We can actually do digitally. So yeah, thank you very much for that. And one of the things I pick up from both presenters is that we do not have to rehash anything. We've got systems there already. We've got programs there already. Let's just work with what we have. Thank you very much. All right, now from South-South, we're now going to the North. We will be now hearing from Helga. Helga is from Norway, and he comes from NOREC, one of the organizations that, for me, their strength is the South-South exchanges. It's one organization that has really been doing great in the collaboration of the South-South, supporting those collaborations. Helga, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mary, and greetings to everybody, and also thanks to IAVE for inviting me, and to Robert and Gabriel for really setting the scene with your excellent presentations. So my presentation will take a sort of a decolonization view, I hope, in line with the overall purpose of the IAVE webinars this year. And I would like to discuss a little bit of the concepts of South-South cooperation, and also triangular cooperation, which is very close. And I would also like to give an overview of some of the platforms and resources that are available for those who want to do South-South cooperation. I want to talk a little bit about results and documentation, and if time allows, which I'm not sure, I could give a couple of good practices examples from NOREC's work, and if not in the main presentation, maybe in the discussion time after. So you can take the next slide, please. So if we now start, I would say a little bit about how volunteering at South-South cooperation really is rooted in the United Nations. And like actually Robert also touched upon, the creation of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, which goes back a long way to 1978, but also is linked to the group of 77 in the United Nations plus China. You can even say or define South-South cooperation as a development cooperation between these countries, which are marked with green on the map up there, even China in red, and but also align themselves with the principles that also Robert mentions about, especially about non-conditionality, non-interference in domestic affairs, and also equality, and not to mention national sovereignty. So this is the development cooperation between those countries, and very much the current status document for South-South cooperation then is the outcome document of the conference in Buenos Aires in 2019, the BAPA plus 40, which marked the 40 years anniversary of this unit in the United Nations. And this outcome document, we have to see from the volunteering perspective. Volunteer groups are recognized as a relevant actor in development, and exchange of personnel is also mentioned and underlined as important. So in this way, volunteering and personnel exchange has a link to a very important policy document in the United Nations currently. And many other or many agencies in the United Nations are running South-South programs, and there are lots of funding sources also for that. But on the other hand, we have this OECD and their emphasis on triangular cooperation. And this is different from South-South cooperation by giving a clear role to the traditional donor countries in the global north. So OECD is distinguishing between a facilitator country in terms of finance on one hand, then secondly, that there is a provider of knowledge, that the technical knowledge comes from another country, which very often is a middle-income country or a country that just have reached middle-income status. And thirdly, there is a recipient country. So this division of roles is quite important in the definition of triangular cooperation. And I think one other difference here is that triangular cooperation is more built on the Paris principles of efficiency. So very, very briefly said, I would say that the South-South cooperation agenda emphasizes solidarity very much, while the OECD and triangular cooperation agenda emphasizes effectiveness. And of course, there are combinations of this and should be always, but this is one way of trying to sort out the two. South-South, often it sounds like two equal words must mean that partners in the South are always equal. And that, I would say, from my experience, is not always the case. You can say that power is exercised between countries in the global South, as well as between the global North and the South. One has to be aware of dominance in project design, dominance in knowledge and control over the project, that the project is labeled as South-South and have a financing source in the South doesn't mean that the partners necessarily are equal. It's no guarantee. So this is one of the contributions I think from learning from the usual North-South development cooperation is to be aware of power imbalances also in South-South. And also there are soft power aspects of this, which could mean something like the cultural influence, the learning that you do, which are not really technical, but related to your stay in another country, and also related to the very nice SDG for volunteering, namely 4.7 on global citizenship and getting to know each other. So also on soft power and volunteering used in as a soft power instrument is part of the picture also in South-South cooperation. So even if maybe not colonized by the global North in this sense, there are still power relations to be aware of, both hard and soft power relations. So we could take the next slide, please. And if we now go more over to volunteering, we all know the traditional, the other one, thank you, that's the one. The individual volunteer from the North who is coming, maybe he looks more informal than this one usually, but some characteristics is that usually he was and is in many cases still from the global North. He is an individual who has applied for being volunteer as an individual and not linked up with a partnership with the global South. He believes himself that he's bringing some knowledge from his place to the other place that is important from the other place, especially if the other place is going to achieve the SDGs. They need his knowledge, which he maybe brings in his suitcase, and the self-image is that he's doing something good. There are many nice pieces written about volunteers who believe they are doing good. Ivan Illich, for example, and who has a piece which is called "To Hell with Good Intentions." So there are different views on this, of course. And this person goes home, of course, confused because things didn't go the way he thought, but also inspired. It's been a year in another country, and that has given him a lot to think about. If you now take the next slide, we see a different picture, and I'm so frank that I put Nurek into trying to balance this picture of the traditional North-South volunteering. And then in a way giving the global South the same opportunity to volunteer in Norway and in other countries in the global South as the Norwegian would have had. Nurek also has a different attitude to this individualism, and we link our volunteers or our people going out to a partnership. So the knowledge they might gain and share will be within the framework of a professional partnership between organizations, between businesses or public institutions. So also we have hopefully a different attitude to how people share and learn, share knowledge and learn. And I think sometimes one really thinks about knowledge as something contained in the brief cases here and taken out in the place of destination. But I think we try to look upon knowledge much more as a sort of a dialogue and a sort of a process, and not like a package to be transferred. So you see also in the NOREC logo, you have two arrows. They go both ways. So we have as many people coming into Norway as we are sending out of Norway, and has had that for 20 years. And but the largest program is the South-South program, and so most of our volunteers are recruited in the global South. And I would say, looking at the volunteering scene, I think many agencies have now recruit volunteers in the global South. Opportunities have really widened compared to 20 years ago. What has been difficult for most agencies have been to volunteer in the North. There have been so many obstacles for that, not at least from immigration authorities. But not in NOREC's case. We have this as an established and legalized program. So in terms of decolonization, I think we now can have a volunteer also from the South Norway, being confused in the same way that the Norwegians are confused, returning home with a lot to think about, and in a way changing his or her life, hopefully, and getting new perspective. And now I can see we have 96 participants online, and I thought I would just ask a small question. How many of you would now automatically think, or how many of you would say who is from the North and who is from the South? Because the person to the left could very well be from the global South, South Africa or wherever, and the person to the right could very well be from Norway. So we must also try to decolonize our minds and thinking about volunteering. It's not only a technical thing. The next one, please. So we will look a little bit on where to get documentation and results and research. If one wants to start up a South-South program, where can we go to find things? And I saw that UNV has logged on. I saw from the chat, and I would like to mention them first, maybe. UNV is a very important resource for documentation, and Tapiva and his team is working on impact and measurement, in particular, in the next State of the World's Volunteering report, to be launched not this December, but the next one. So we look very much forward to seeing the UNV really getting in depth into the issue of measurement and volunteering. Then I would like to mention also Forum and IAVE itself are great resources. There is a bunch of researchers linked to these two organizations that usually write reports every year to the conferences that these two organizations organize, thematic papers and others. And I really appreciate the way research and documentation is part of Forum and IAVE's work, and trying to argue why international volunteering is important, and with that also South-South volunteering. The South-South Global Thinkers at the top is linked to what Robert talked about. He talked about the Galaxy, which I have there as well. And that's a network of 250 think tanks. And we have asked this network to say what they think about the NOREC concept, the NOREC personnel exchange concept from their Global South point of view. And we look very much forward to to see the results of that later this year. So it could be that even if we think we are doing well, we could also have a colonized perspective. So we try actively to see how we can counter that. I would also mention the Indian think tank RIS. They are very active in documentation, and not at least now that the G20 has moved to India. And there's an enormous amount of good research and documentation. The galaxy, maybe we move to the next page, if we take the next page. Here we see some of the platforms. Now I think Robert went in depth on the United Nations Office of South-South Cooperation, which is very good. The galaxy is, of course, one aspect of that. Very resourceful. You can go in, you can find good practices in the hundreds. This UN office is more or less every year there is a new volume of good practices, both generally or thematically, like for small island states or for landlocked countries. They have special publications on good practices, which we all can learn from. They also have publication series like South-South in Action, South-South IDs, and also the UN office organizes more or less every year the Expo. You see the logo at the top, the South-South Development Expo, which is a very resourceful place as well. If we look at the GIZ, the German cooperation, they also are, they are of course government, and they have a number of programs that can be accessed. They have, for example, a South-South Cooperation Fund for Latin America for a couple of years. Now they are into Asia as well. And I think, as with many other funds at the moment, the demand is much higher than the budget for it. But at least advice and networking with them is, of course, free. The Global Partnership Initiative on Effective Triangular Cooperation is, of course, sort of linked to the OECD, but there are many good places to meet there also, like on the South-South Day, which is organized the 12th of September every year. A marketplace where people really can meet and organizations can meet and link up and see what they could do together is organized also every year. You have the OECD itself has had for a few years a knowledge sharing initiative with very interesting results. And they also do a lot of publications of triangular cooperation. I think one of the problems of governments not getting more involved in South-South cooperation, talking about the northern governments, is that South-South doesn't have a special budget line in national budgets, and there is no particular unit called the South-South organizational unit in our ministries. So that's part of the lobbying effort we have to make, so that South-South becomes more embedded in public administration in the global north. The Adelante here mentioned is EU's program for Latin American countries. So there are many. It's just touching the surface here. So finally, I have just very briefly two good practices. I would like to take 1 minute on each only, if that's allowed. So if you take the next slide, which is the second last one. One good example is a cooperation here, which you can see between Pelham, Kenya on the left side and Fatshig in Zimbabwe on the other side. They exchange, it shouldn't be 5 people going each way. As it seems, it's 15 each way. Sorry for that, but you see 5 of them down in the picture. And the exchange is done professionally like this, that the Kenya Pelum is very good in sustainable agriculture, in agricultural methods, and how to utilize the climate conditions and the soil properly. While the Zimbabwean organization on the right, the FATSIG, they are good in marketing, value adding, and so on. So these two benefit because they are in the same sector, but they are a little bit different. So they can learn from each other. And 30 people now being on exchange over a couple of years period, they have the same foundation, but they are so different that it's interesting to learn from each other, which is the basics of the Nordic program. So the overall purpose is, of course, to have youth more interested in agriculture. So this is one example of a Nordic good practice. And the last one, which is then my last slide, is another one in the field of health, where 2 organizations here in Kenya and Uganda are cooperating on how to reopen and staff clinics in rural areas in these two countries. They are not either working very differently in the 2 countries, but they are somewhat different in staffing and staff skills and professions. And especially in mother and child health, in health education and communicable diseases and so on. And I think in this project, one of the nice things can link up to what Gabriel said and what they find out when they are out in the rural areas with their technical medical skills from 2 countries. They find out that maybe the most important thing was to link with the community, even with the more technical focus on health, and so that I think is very nice. So this was from my side a very, very brief scratch on the surface, and I leave it back to you, Mary.
Great. Thank you, Helge, for the presentation. And I must tell you, as soon as you came on, already there was a comment in the chat saying, hey, we are beneficiaries of the Nordic collaboration project. So thank you very much. And I like the fact that at the end you gave us examples of the programs that were successful. Wonderful. So great presentation, gentlemen. Thank you very much for that. Very insightful, a lot of information to digest. I also saw quite a lot of comments coming through where people are saying, hey, contact us, let us collaborate. So already you can see that it's working, that we're saying, you know, let's make friends. So from this exchanges, please take notes. We will be sharing presentations. We will be sharing the recording. So you will get all that information so that you can continue engaging with others. Thank you very much. I have got 5, it's actually 4 questions in the chat box. So if you still have got questions and answers, please do send them through. The first one, this one will go to you, Dr. Robert, because this came through while you were speaking. It says, why is this series of webinars referred to as decolonizing volunteering? Dr. Towi, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. Did you get the question?
Yes, I got your question. Maybe
yeah, this came, yeah.
I can attempt to give an answer, but I think Yave can step in as well, since the idea initially came from Yave. If for participants who have attended the first webinars, we discussed a little bit about that. And as I also said when I was giving the general information, I said there were these perceptions that Africa is on the receiving end while the North is on the sending end. And also, there are even some studies where people were saying volunteers coming from the North are better than volunteers from the South. Those are perception. I'm not saying there are scientific evidences, but it's perception. And that's why this idea of thinking decolonization and change of mentality, I think Robert or Gabriel who mentioned the change of mentality. I think this is important. If you want to go to share information or experience or knowledge with someone, if you are not going with this principle that Robert and I mentioned on equality, solidarity, if you're going as you are just on the receiving end, there will not be any exchange. So I think this idea is important to go with the idea that it's a give and take, so that the South-South cooperation can be more useful. And of course, if Robert is here to share experience of Norway with us, we are not saying that doing this, there should not be any partnership with the North. It's important. South-South cooperation doesn't stop collaboration with the North. We're just saying that there are things that are more similar to these countries in the global South, and that they can easily share this type of experiences. That's an attempt. As I said, maybe if Samuel is following, if he would like to step in and give more insight on why IAVE decided to focus on this topic.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. You can reserve your comment. You'll comment at the end when in your closing statement. All right, gentlemen, Helga and Gabriel, does any of you want to add something onto that one quickly in a minute? No? Okay. All right.
I'm okay, I agree.
Okay, cool. Then the next question we've got from Carol Martinez. It says, can you share more about the SDG KPIs? What are you measuring? Any of you gentlemen can answer that. What are we measuring on SDGs?
I mentioned it in my presentation.
Yeah.
Social impact measurement can be really hard, and we could get much better at it. I think that over here at our own institution, but also internationally, from what I've seen, it is a big theme. And it can be really hard, but it can also be very expensive. Impact measurement, it takes time, takes expertise. It's not something that we just do with a small survey. We can have some numbers there, but it's not all the complex numbers or all the information that would be great to share with other people or sometimes your founder. But the SDGs, they do provide some direction on where to go, what to do, what numbers to tackle. And what I wanted to say is if we take that into account, it's better so we can have the same talk with sometimes very different institutions. So we take the same number, the same purpose, the same strategic objective. It can be very productive for both institutions. And the SDGs provides an international direction of social and sustainable impact measurement. So I think that we could use that to collaborate with each other. that's a little bit of what I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel.
Could I add
Helga?
on, Mary?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
yes.
And I think we need to have a sort of a concept, a framework for results when we are talking about volunteering, because what are we really talking about? When we say about achievement of SDGs, we often think about the recipient countries and what is being improved there in terms of services or things on the ground that hopefully contribute to the SDGs. But volunteering is is so much more. You change, maybe, hopefully, things when you are out there, hopefully. But you also change things when you come home, because as a result of the volunteering, you get, and that is by 95% of people, they change their perspective, having been out in the other country for a year and getting this kind of social learning and life experience. So then you have effect on the SDGs in a way, both at home and abroad, and you have it on two levels, both institutionally and on the personal level. And the research being done on that I mentioned, particularly by IAVI itself and Forum, the research commissioned by those, I think in a nice way has realized that the concept of result is wider. So you need a sort of a, you can call it, it's maybe a little bit ambitious, but the theory of change. What is changed through volunteering? And then you will see that this is actually a wide subject. It's not only the technical achievement of SDG in the recipient country. So it starts there. And then, of course, as I said, we look forward to the UNV go through of measurement in the coming year. But I don't think that will give the whole picture, because the whole picture is so multifaceted on different levels and with people and everything. So we need to be very conscious about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Helga. Yeah.
I totally agree with Helga in this point, because volunteering is so much about getting in touch with each other. And how can you measure the experience of somebody that lived abroad for a year and got in touch with so many different people and cultures? And of course, you can try to have some numbers but it's impossible to measure all this, the perspectives that this brings, you know. So yeah, we always have to challenge ourselves to find better KPIs, but we do have to have the humility. Is that the right word? Humility? I don't know. But we need to be humble to understand that there are some things that are impossible to measure. It's just really about the experience that people are going through, and that's really, really important part of it too.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your input and your response to those questions. The others are not really questions, are the matters of clarity that they need from you. So to our audience, I would like to say, please go to the website of ATADOS and that of NOREC, because some of your questions are really just direct to the two gentlemen, to Helga and to Gabriel. So go onto their website, you will find information, and if you're not clear, you can email them and they definitely will get back to you. We will be sharing the recording of the webinar today, and we will be sharing all the presentations. If you want more information on why did we call this series of webinars, concentrate on decolonizing and more on South-South, please just go to the IAVE website and just go. There's quite a lot of documentation, enough to read there. So just go on to there. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to moderate this webinar. Thank you to Samuel and thank you to the presenters. Great insight. Gail in the background doing our technical support. Thank you. And to everybody that attended here, thank you very much. I would like to hand back to Samuel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you to our fascinating experts who have actually shared a great presentation here to the audiences. And of course, in the chat, you can see a lot of connections happening between people linking up within themselves. So part of the webinar, both the presentation and the interactions have actually answered some of the reason or the essence as to why we have this webinar. In addition to the comment, the submission, which I think answers the questions about decolonization, there is that the other thing that I just want to add is about the decolonization. We're talking about cut across different things around volunteering or thinking around volunteering. We're talking about, Dr. Tori was talking about exchange program and being recipients. And again, another thing that I want to add into that is the fact that volunteering has grown rapidly so far in Africa. Networks are built in different countries in there, and then a lot of work is happening, a lot of awareness has actually happened. The challenge that is faced most often at country level is the fact that most of the volunteer network are not thriving. Most of the volunteer organizations are not thriving to be able to move from informal to a formal structure that we recognize by government. And most of these countries do not have frameworks or structures. And most of the volunteer works or majority of the recognition for volunteers are mostly done by NGOs, big NGOs, especially big NGOs from the global north, which is nice. They are doing extremely well. We feel that ownership of volunteering in the global south should be owned by the indigenes in the various countries where they are working. And that should start by strong collaboration with global north to build experience and expertise to be able to do certain or just increase capacity so that they're able to reach at certain heights. We look at financing, we look at research, we look at technology and the inequalities and expertise in various kind of ways that volunteers can be able to harness the next level to those involvements. And the only way that can work is when the bigger players from the north are able to build those capacity, when they're able to look at reduce the inequalities of expertise. So that is why we are having series of the conversation around decolonization. This one we're looking at South-South collaboration. We have a lot of consideration as to how we look at in terms of looking at enabling environment and policy formulations at country level. We're looking at knowledge and research, telling its own stories and volunteering. We also will talk about the aspect of financing, because, I mean, we have to look at how do we generate domestic finance to support volunteering. That could be government support to come in, to volunteers, private sector support. As we know, that is not the case for Africa. So this is the reason why we bring in this conversation. And like I said, there are a lot that we can discuss about this. And that's why I'm so excited getting a brilliant and insightful discussion or presentation from our panelists cut across Europe and Latin America and Africa. We tried to get Asia, but unfortunately it was hard, and we hope that in our next webinar, the next series, which will be in June, we'll be able to have Asia represented here. But I really want to thank all of you again to join me. To thank you. We've seen a clear diversity of the globe. We've seen the kind of representation from both Africa, Europe, America, or every part of the world in this webinar today. We've got over 100 participants who have actually joined the call. And this is what IAVE does in terms of its advocacy. And we'll continue to do this work, bringing insightful discussions around what the common goals we are trying to achieve on volunteering, bringing the experts together to look at how we create synergy and we bring on the issues so that we can address them moving forward. I really want to thank you for taking your time, for being part of this. And please send us your thoughts, what you think. If you feel that we need to discuss something very important around decolonization, don't hesitate to reach us. As you have seen the email, we definitely want to get you involved in the discussion, as this is not limited to only a few people. Thank you, Mary, for accepting our offer, and also thank you, Gabriel, and thank you, Elge, and thank you, Mr. Robert, for always being in touch whenever we knock on your door to come to give us your expertise here. We look forward to get you back in our next webinar in June. More information about that you will get. Thank you. Like Mary said, we will share the presentation. You can have it in your email, and probably the recording of this webinar, you can have it on your email. So for those of you who are not able to join, you can share with your network. They can be able to share as well among. I want to use this opportunity again to really, on behalf of IAVA, to thank all of you, and we look forward to continue having you on our webinars and having your expertise with us. Thank you, and have a great week. Bye-bye.